Hey everybody, welcome back. This month we have been working through mindfulness techniques, and you would be forgiven if looking through my videos you decided that mindfulness is really all about meditation. Meditation is one pathway to mindfulness, but there are others as well. As I've mentioned, we can take a walk in nature and pay attention to all of the glory around us. Or we can do a mindful tea ceremony where we pay attention to the cup, the look of the cup, the feel of the cup in our hands, the temperature of the liquid, the color of the liquid, the taste, and the physical sensation of actually swallowing the tea. We can pay attention to all of the physical sensations involved in drinking a cup of tea, and that act in and of itself is a mindfulness practice. There are also other ways that mindfulness is used that don't necessarily involve meditation. Psychologists, of course, use mindfulness in mindfulness-based stress management programs, and there is mindful-based cognitive behavioral therapy. But in those cases, meditation is part of the therapeutic intervention. There is also dialectical behavior therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy, where psychologists will use elements of mindfulness in their treatment, but meditation is not a part of that. So there are many ways that we can practice mindfulness without meditation, even though I have uploaded several meditations this month. Because mindfulness trains us to be in the present moment as a supporting practice to gratitude, it has earned its place as having a focus for a month on this channel. But before we leave the topic of mindfulness, it's important that we discuss some of the caveats around the practice of mindfulness in the West. As I've said, mindfulness has been extracted from Buddhist meditation, and we should always be aware and a little bit cautious when we extract a spiritual practice from its context. Mindfulness does reduce our stress. It decreases insomnia, fatigue, and also inflammation. And for most people, it produces well-being benefits. But mindfulness is not for everyone. Research shows that some individuals find that the intense focus on the present moment can increase their anxiety and depression rather than decrease it. And so, as with everything, begin slowly. Begin with a 1-minute mindfulness meditation and see how it fits for you. If it's not for you, there are other ways to get into the moment through our experience of oneness, perhaps practicing those things that get you into a flow state. That intense concentration on something that you love will probably not trigger anxiety and depression, but will train the mind to be very present. So, as I said, mindfulness is not for everyone, and if it's not for you, that's okay. In recent years, mindfulness has come under criticism because it assumes that we have agency to change our circumstances. And it also puts the onus on the individual to practice mindfulness to deal with the stress they're experiencing, rather than examining whether the corporate culture or the capitalist system or racism that is inherent in our culture might be to blame for this. Mindfulness has been, as I've said before, extracted from Buddhist meditation. And by extracting it for the purpose of stress reduction, we have also extracted it from the ethical basis of Buddhism. And so the criticism is that individuals may become sheeple, following along and becoming more and more stressed and having to practice more and more mindfulness just to keep up with an unsustainable corporate culture. On the other hand, there's an extreme focus on the individual experience, and that focus can lead to a little bit of self-involvement in a world where we experience systemic racism and poverty and all kinds of inequity. And so the criticism is that mindfulness lacks a sense of social responsibility, and we can become way too self-involved. The fact that there is now mindful self-compassion blows some people's minds, and they believe that this can lead to extreme narcissism. The same sorts of criticisms have been leveled on gratitude as well. The criticism on gratitude is that we can find ourselves wanting to be grateful for something in our lives and looking to terrible circumstances and finding the good in it. While it's helpful to find the good in bad circumstances, it's also helpful to change those circumstances if we can, and we should never be grateful for abuse. So I agree with some of the criticisms, but some I do not. First of all, I believe that in a world where we may have grown up without a great sense of self-esteem or self-awareness, mindful self-compassion can be very helpful. And we have to take the individual where they are. Not all of us are Buddhas, and so we are on a pathway to self-development. I also believe that spiritual practices, when taken out of context, can be very dangerous. And so, yes, I agree with those criticisms. I believe it was The Guardian who called it a conspiracy of mindfulness. On this channel, we practice not only gratitude, but we practice oneness to become aware of our interdependence and therefore our responsibility to one another. And of course, we practice service, giving back to the community and making changes where we need to. One of the practices we haven't yet touched on this channel is authenticity. And authenticity is one of those practices that, among many things, allows us to know who we are. And that experience allows us to know what we believe in and what we stand for. And no amount of mindfulness is going to take away the fact that maybe we believe that inequality is wrong and that racism is wrong, and we will take a stand when we see it. It also allows us to know what's good for us and what isn't. One of the criticisms I believe is really valid is that mindfulness can be used to train people into sheeple, and it can be used as a tool of the corporate culture. At the same time that we were experiencing austerity and companies were making cuts to their staff but still expecting the same output, we also saw in the UK the rise of mindfulness at work. And when we see a spiritual practice being touted by corporate culture, we need to be a little bit suspicious of what their motives may be. Individuals should not have to practice mindfulness in order to manage the stress that is being heaped upon them by corporations that are trying to achieve the same profit while cutting costs and salaries. So yes, we should be a little bit suspicious of the use of mindfulness at work. And so when you're practicing your mindfulness techniques, it's important to think about whether the stress that you're under is normal stress and you're learning to cope with it better, or if you are using mindfulness to cope with stress that really is not appropriate to be putting on you. Of course, taking mindfulness out of the Buddhist meditation practice removes it from the tenets of Buddhism of non-attachment and not being caught up in the corporate or consumer culture in the first place. We need to take reference to our own values, to our own ethics, to our sense of authenticity and social responsibility when we practice. We also need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. Mindfulness, and for that matter gratitude, are just tools on our pathway to greater well-being. And like any tools, they can be used well or they can be used poorly. I advocate the use of all of the practices together so that we have a balanced sense of responsibility to ourselves and to others. I hope that you have enjoyed this month on mindfulness and that you will continue to practice, whether through mindfulness or other techniques, ways to be living in the present moment. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, then click subscribe, or if you stay to the end, you'll see the entire playlist. For what are you most grateful today?